All right, you are now live.
Hello, everyone. This meeting is called to order at 4:10 p.m. We start with our land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We'll start today's meeting with a roll call and AV check, beginning with the 4 new members of the committee. When I call your name, please turn on your camera and introduce yourself. And first on the list is me. My name is Céline Vautour. I'm the new chair in training with the assistance of Elizabeth McDonald. So please be patient with me on some moments of word jumble. I'll get this right soon enough. To tell you about myself, I am a disability advocate with a focus on disability rights for adults. I feel there's an urgency to improve accessibility and public services, especially for those who are late diagnosed for cognitive conditions. I also believe improving the system will also give today's disabled children and youth a chance for a brighter future as adults. So let's get this all fixed in our municipality. And next on the list is Glenn Babcock. Is he there?
I'm here. I'm actually still in transit, so
Oh,
just on my phone at the moment. And in about 15 minutes, I'll switch over to my computer.
okay.
But
Okay.
yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you. Next on the list, we have Oliver Keith.
Hello, everybody. My name is Oliver Keith. I'm joining you from Halifax today. My background is particularly in accessibility for youth. I've done a lot of work with the Arthritis Society of Canada. I personally myself have arthritis and other autoimmune diseases throughout. And so my focus area has been within accessibility, particularly with youth due to that work. I also have a special interest in developing accessible spaces within green environments and green spaces. So thank you for having me.
Yay. Next on the list, forgive me for pronunciation, I will get better at this. Devon Tarma, you would probably know already, I'm talking about you.
Fabian Tharmaratnam. I'm the executive director with Inclusion Nova Scotia. I also live in Halifax, and and the reason I kind of joined this committee is both professionally but also personally, and just to support accessibility and inclusion within the municipality.
Great, thank you. Next is Liz Dool with the support of her ASL interpreters.
Yes, my name is Liz Dowell. It's not Duel, it's Dowell.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna get this right.
On reading that the pronunciation was off. Okay. I know there are different family names, Duel and Dowell. I'm Dowell.
Dowell, okay.
But I'm here to support and with the goal of in bettering accessibility for those who are deaf and hard of hearing. And there's a variety of names for those who are deaf and hard of hearing, depending on their hearing loss. And I'll add those who have visual impairments as well onto that list.
Great, thank you. Next we have, is April Adams available? Elizabeth, I don't see.
No? April was going to rejoin, but is not in the meeting yet.
Oh, okay. So I'll re-ask at the end.
Yeah.
Next on is Rochelle Manette.
Hi, I'm here. I guess we're doing quick introductions today. Yeah, Rochelle, they, them, and she, her pronouns. I am disabled and also worked in the disability sector for a while. And yeah, I've been on the committee for a couple of years now, so I'm excited to be back.
Great. Thank you. And we have Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gammon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. My district is District 1, Waverley, Fall River, Musquodoboit Valley. And by quick introduction, before I entered the municipal world of politics, I was 40 years working in the nonprofit sector supporting persons with intellectual disability and dual diagnosis.
Okay, great. Councillor Trish Purdy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councillor for District 4, which is Cole Harbour, Westfall, Lakeland, and Cherrybrook, and happy to be here.
Great. And Councillor Paul Russell.
Councillor Russell has not joined the meeting yet. I know
Okay.
Councillor Russell was planning to join or had to join a little bit later today.
Oh, okay, that's great. And I just would trust you'll tell me when they have arrived.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And just looking of this, next, we have the approval of minutes of June 3rd, 2024. I will now ask if there are any errors or omissions for the minutes of June 3rd, the June 3rd meeting. If there are none, I would invite a member to move the following motion: that the minutes of June 3rd, 2024 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented. This requires a mover and a seconder. Please make sure you state the names of the members who move and second. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say A or
So-
raise. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
So we'll
Aha.
just need a mover
I-
and a seconder first. And then we
Madam
can
Chair,
call,
I
we can
can,
call for the
I can
question.
move that motion.
Second.
I got in the reading zone way too much.
That's okay. So seconded by Councillor Purdy and moved by the Deputy Mayor. So you're
Awesome.
welcome to call for the question.
I'll call for the question. All those in favor say A or raise hands. Opposed?
Then use the
Okay.
left lane to turn.
Hello? Oh, okay, because I thought somebody was talking. The motion has been carried, yes? Am I right? Yay,
Yep,
I got
yep.
it. Okay, so next on the list, approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. We will now move on to the approval of the order of business of today's meeting. To our legislative assistant, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes to today's agenda.
Okay, that, the,
So now you can invite a member of the committee to move the following motion, the motion being that the agenda be approved as presented,
okay,
if there are no additions or deletions, which there are none from the clerk's office.
okay. So that would mean I'll call for the question. All
So you
those,
can call for
no.
a mover and a seconder, just like you did for the minutes.
okay. All right, sorry, I'm panicking.
You're okay.
Okay, so is there a mover and a seconder? Is that it? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, great.
So Rochelle, I'll move.
Okay, great.
Moved by Rochelle.
I can second, Madam Chair. Kathy?
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. So just like you did with the minutes, you can call for the question.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor say A or raise hands or opposed.
Sorry, I just
Aye.
want to, just before we keep going, when we do the call for the move as well as the second, can we put a little bit of a delay? Because sometimes I want to go ahead and move or go for a second, but
Okay.
everyone is quick and the interpreter has a bit of a delay.
Oh,
so they're
yes.
not able to speak in time. So just to have a little pause every now and again, just for the interpreter, that would be great.
I have it noted now. Okay, sorry about that, Liz.
Oh, no worries. Don't even apologize. It's all good. Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you.
Everyone's always learning and everyone's new to the interpreter, so we're all getting to know each other.
Great. It's also like sensory overload. I'm getting new to this new position. Okay, all right. So the motion has been, and that's the other thing too. I have to pay attention of like all those in favor say A or raise hands or oppose, and I have to see the consensus, right? Is that right, Elizabeth?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So I find it's actually easiest a lot of the time if everyone does speak if possible, just because sometimes if someone's camera's turned off, you can't always see them raise their hand.
Yeah, that's
But-
it.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's it. I am having a hard time finding out if it's an A or.
Yeah, so I think the easiest thing to do would be to verbally hear if everyone that's in favor, and then you'd be able to hear if there was anyone opposed.
Okay, great. So can people unmute themselves and let me know if it's an A or they're opposed? Calling once, calling twice. Are we listening?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, I thought we already did this.
Yeah,
I
Okay, so it just seems to me that it's in favor. The motion has been carried. Is that right? Am I doing this right? Yes,
You can
Elizabeth?
declare the motion as carried.
Okay, so the motion has been declared as carried. Next item, like business arising out of the minutes, there's none.
Correct.
And then the next after that, call for declaration of conflict of interest. I will now ask if anyone has a conflict of interest to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda. Okay. It appears there are no declarations of conflict of interest. The meeting proceeds. Next is consideration of deferred business. It is indicating there is none. Next, we have correspondence, petitions, and delegations. For correspondence to our clerk, has any correspondence from the public has been received?
No correspondence has been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. For petitions to our clerk, are there any petitions to be presented?
There are no petitions.
Okay, great. And for presentations, it says none.
None. So we don't have any external presenters
Okay.
today. Well, we actually do have a staff person that is
Okay.
presenting with an external person, but normally if we have a member of the public presenting on their own, they would be under 7.3.
Okay.
section. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Information items brought forward indicates none. Reports discussion for staff is the Slater Street Connections Local Street Bikeway Project. Okay, so I'm reading everything, but I should be just reading what's queued for me. Next on our agenda is a presentation on the Slater Street and Connections Local Street Bikeway Project from Maria Jacobs, Active Transportation Planner, and Courtney Pine, Team Lead, Senior Traffic and Transportation Engineer, WSP Canada. Following the presentation, Maria and Courtney will be available to answer questions from committee members. Maria and Courtney, you may begin your presentation.
Courtney,
Okay.
I'm just going to promote you to co-host so you can share your screen.
Okay, and while that's happening, I'll just do an introduction. So my name is Maria Jacobs, as you mentioned, and I'm with the Active Transportation Group with the Public Works of HRM. And what we, through the IMP, the Integrated Mobility Plan, and also through the Active Transportation Priorities Plan, we have a number of routes that we've selected for priority for active transportation, and in this case, cycling. One of those facilities is called a local street bikeway. And this project is what we call a local street bikeway. And essentially it's a street that's parallel to a busier street, and we calm traffic down and the speeds and whatever we can in order for it to be more comfortable for cyclists, but also for the people living on that street. So it's called a local street bikeway, and it connects with other facilities that are coming in are either there now or in the future. So at this point, we hired a WSP, the consultants, and what they've done is they've looked at the data and have come up with some concepts for this local street bikeway facility. And we last week, or actually no, May 29th, we had a.
If I could interrupt real quick, just before we get into the presentation, where is Slater Street?
Yeah, it's parallel to Victoria Street in Dartmouth. So if you're familiar with Dartmouth, then you know the if you're coming from the bridge and you go up in that very busy street that kind of sort of people take to go up to.
Oh, right. Okay. I was just curious as to where it was. Okay, thank you. I don't go to that area very often.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm from Dartmouth, so I'm very familiar. But I think we will have a map also that'll show where we are. But essentially, what we've had is we've had two public engagement sessions where we had display boards and an open house, and people could come in, drop in, and just look at all the display boards and what we are proposing. And we also have a live survey on Shape Your City, and that's another way of folks to give their feedback on what we are proposing or the concepts we've come up with. So Courtney from WSP will present what we basically displayed or present for the survey and for the public on May 29th. And from here, just so you know, we'll compile the information, the feedback, and then that'll go to the Transportation Committee, and then also to the a recommendation to Regional Council if it moves forward. Okay, thank you. Courtney, did you want to go ahead and present?
I'll take it from here. Thank you, Maria.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for having us today. My name is Courtney Pine. So as mentioned, I'm a senior traffic and transportation engineer with WSP Canada. I work on a lot of active transportation projects, both conceptual and functional design, and some of them are lucky enough to go to 100% detailed design and also get constructed. So those are the lucky ones out there. So hopefully this also falls into that category. Is my volume okay? Is anyone having a challenge hearing me?
That's perfect for me.
We're good? Fantastic. Can I also get a double check on the screen? Can you see my screen? Fantastic. So as Maria mentioned, we are here to talk about the Local Street Bikeway application, specifically on Slater Street with some connection opportunities. And we'll jump right in. So what are the goals here today? So we want to provide an overview of the project for those attending this meeting today. We want to review the work that has been completed so far. We're going to review some of the intersection concept options. And of course, we have some initial public feedback that we're going to run through. Maria has also pulled off a few points for us from the online survey, but as it was mentioned, the online survey is still live, so therefore we don't have a compiled final set of comments yet, just some initial feedback that we've heard so far. And of course, we're here at the Accessibility Advisory Committee today to look for feedback, comments, anything that you guys might have as interest based on these intersection concept options. And our goal is to take all the feedback heard up to the next week back to the HRM or Halifax Regional Municipalities Technical Committee to kind of review and then assist us with selecting the preferred concept option that will bring to functional design, which is also called 30% design. And that's where we'll wrap up the project in our report, as Maria did mention. So a little bit of a project overview. So here's that map that was asked for. So hopefully this helps out position where we are focusing today. So the goal of this project, or the objective of the project, is to develop a functional plan for the Slater Local Street Bikeway with north, south, and west bikeway network connections that are going to provide all ages and abilities, so AAA facilities between the north, central, and downtown Dartmouth within the regional center. So what we have here is on the map is we have Slater Street is shown in blue, which is like kind of our main study corridor area. To the north of it, our picture is a little bit skewed here, but the purple is considered the northern connection, which will cross Albro Lake Road and connect up to Victoria Road to a future project that is planned by HRM. On the western side is the Nantucket Avenue connection, which is on your approach to the McDonald Bridge. So that's that road there that goes by the McDonald's, it goes by the Zaxton Sportsplex, or the Dartmouth Sportsplex that I knew growing up, and by the Bridge Transit Terminal there. So that's Nantucket Avenue, and that's considered our west connection. And we also have our southern connection, which is getting us from Slater Street across Thistle Street. We're looking at a connection down Pine Street to get to Ochterlony. So that's our study area here. So focusing on Slater and then the north, west, and south connections. So our project scope for this project was we initiated the project, and then we jumped into getting all of the existing conditions data possible.
Sorry, Courtney.
Yep.
Don't mean to interrupt, but the counselor was wondering whether we could increase the map beforehand, just increase it so that she could take a better look at the area. I know that in Teams you can zoom in on your own screen, but I don't know. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Did you get a snapshot? Also, I believe these slide or like the PDF was distributed as well in the meeting agenda, I believe, or the invite. So of course, I think you have that secondhand as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I just know that sometimes some of our committee members
Okay.
only have one screen.
Gotcha.
So when it's here and it's larger, it's great for the rest of for all of us on the committee.
I'll do my best to zoom in then for you guys. Sounds good. I'll go back to full size, and then as I get images up on the screen, I'll do my best to zoom in. Okie dokie. So the project scope. So as mentioned, we initiated the project and then we jumped right into getting some existing data conditions for the project study area. And we then wrapped up something called an existing conditions report, which kind of has pulled all the information to date into one document for us to have a nice starting point to build our concept options off of. We then went through the step there of looking at plan view drawings as well as creating intersection drawings based on the information that was provided. We did go through a few change orders for the project, so the project did take a little bit longer than planned. However, where we are at today is completing public and stakeholder engagement. And of course, the AAC is part of that engagement process. So once we conclude our AAC and our ATAC meeting this week, as well as the online survey closes, we'll be preparing something called a What We Heard report. And this What We Heard report will be going through HRM for review. And then once it's been finalized, we'll be going and being posted on Shape Your City website for those that would like to review that can. As I had mentioned previously, once we get all the information, we'll meet with HRM and the project team again to select the preferred option that WSP will bring to functional design and wrap up our project with a functional plan report. So the main corridor that we're focusing on here is Slater Street, as mentioned before. So the blue corridor is where we had some data that showed us that we may need to look into a few more things to help out making this street a local street bikeway. So the goal with local street bikeways is to have a low volume, so low vehicle volume street and a low vehicle speed street. There is an administrative order that HRM has that we, WSP and other consultants use as a guideline to assist us with determining what is a local street bikeway or what can we do on that street to meet a local street bikeway and guidelines. Based on that data that we did collect earlier in the project, 2 locations were flagged as being a little bit on the high side for some speed and some volumes on the corridor, and there was 2 spots. The dot here in the center, I'm just going to zoom in, just get my mouse. So the dot right here, if you can see my cursor, is near this one here required some consideration of traffic calming, but didn't require diversion. Whereas the spot over here on Slater and Thistle did require some traffic calming and may require diversion. So when we go through our concept options, that is where some of the information came through, is we have 2 high of volumes on Slater Street to assist with making it a local street bikeway. So we wanted to look at opportunities there to reduce some of the shortcutting trips that might be using Slater Street today and just keep it the local street and like a local trips on the network. As mentioned, we had looked at 10 study intersections throughout the project area. We looked at Woodland, we looked at Francis Street, we looked at Boland Road, and then over at Nantucket, and then a few spots on Thistle Street as well. So jumping into our concept options, what do we want to look at? So focusing on the northern connection first. So that's at the top of Slater Street, crossing Albro Lake Road and coming onto Victoria Road. So again, we're just focusing on the purple section here as part of our map. I'll zoom us in here. So what we're looking at to make that connection, so I previously mentioned that Victoria Road was going to have a facility done as a different project. So we wanted to tag into that, and I believe that project's looking at a bi-directional bikes facility, which means it's one space for a 2-way cycle movement or bicycle movement in that same space. So it might be 3 to 4 meters wide of asphalt surface for those cyclists to use. So that then would come down Victoria Road and connect onto Albro Lake Road with something called a multi-use pathway. So in this orientation, like the top of the page on Albro Lake Road would be a multi-use pathway that is an asphalt surface, approximately 3 meters wide, and that's for all non-motorized users, so pedestrians, people that are rolling and cycling. Do you have a question?
No, we were Liz and I were just talking how the presentation is big, but her square is very small.
Okay.
On my laptop. So to see her, she's very, very tiny in comparison to the presentation.
How's my speed? Is it, I'm trying to watch you finish. Is that okay?
Just 1 minute. I'm just trying to figure out if there's any way to make her bigger.
I think the view settings, because I put mine on standard. I don't know if that helps, like when it's like the view icon.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Yeah, that work? Okay.
Yeah, but I can't see the presentation now, but I can see Liz better.
Sorry. You'll see your screen. There's a part in the middle that divides the two.
Yeah.
That you can click and scroll so that you can make either side bigger or smaller. It divides the audience versus the presentation. There's a line right in the middle that you can move around.
She said, how big am I now? Okay. Okay, we are getting better here. But then I've got the entire gallery.
If you have the entire gallery, then click the hide non-video participants. It gets rid of a lot of people.
That's better. Okay.
Ready to go again?
She's still very small, but okay. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so as we continue along the multi-use pathway, which is the asphalt facility that be removed from the road, shared by all non-motorized users, so pedestrians, people that are rolling and cycling, we then would come up to the Slater Street intersection here where we then cross onto Slater Street, which would be our local street bikeway application. So as I had mentioned previously, there was a couple spots along Slater Street that we kind of wanted to focus in on reducing the amount of vehicle volumes that we're using Slater Street, maybe to shortcut Victoria Road as we do experience some delays on Victoria Road. And we wanted us to keep it as local trips, of course, on the street, as well as have a space there for cyclists to use as well in a local street application. So a few of the images I'll show will show something called a traffic diversion that will look to see how can we get those shortcutting trips off the network. This here, we're at the Woodland Slater Street intersection. So what we are looking at here is something called a diversion. So if you can see my cursor, or I'm going to call it the northern approach on Slater Street, we actually are limiting access to Slater in the southern direction. So this here is called a diversion, and therefore only vehicle users would be able to exit from Slater and turn onto Woodland. So therefore nobody from Woodland would be able to turn onto Slater, or anybody that was on Slater originally could not cross Woodland to continue on to Slater. So therefore this is a way to help with the afternoon PM peak of trips that are trying to shortcut along Slater. They have to go or stay on Victoria Road for their access to any of the local area. This here also was flagged. Question? Do we want to hold questions to the end, or are we jumping in?
I just had a quick question. Sorry, this is Vivian. So I actually live in this neighborhood, and I was just wondering, was there a reason why the other side of Woodland wasn't studied at all during the traffic calming data set? Just because I know, and just even since we've been there for the last 2 years, there's been a lot of people who've taken Simmons as a shortcut in the mornings, and Moira. I think more like we have friends who live on Moira, and I think that's even worse. But I know even on our street in the morning, there's people that rip down that end.
We could maybe continue the presentation. Normally, the format the meetings take place in is questions are asked at the end. So if that would be okay, that that question can be addressed once the presentation's over.
But we won't forget about you, I promise. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so at this intersection as well, we did get some vehicle volumes as well as pedestrians and cyclist counts to help us out to see kind of what's going on at this intersection today. So our data was collected back in September 2023, so still is post-COVID information. And to assist cyclists crossing this intersection, we're looking at installing something called a pedestrian half signal. So that's where both pedestrians and cyclists would be able to activate or push a button to turn the lights to have Woodland stop at a red signal, so meaning they'd have to stop, and therefore would provide an opportunity for the pedestrians to cross, as well as provide a gap for cyclists to cross Woodland Street to be able to continue on to Slater Street. So that was what was proposed at this option here. We have another option as well that kept all two-way movements open at this intersection of Woodland and Slater. So therefore we don't have that diversion measure. However, to assist cyclists getting across the intersection and continuing on the local street bikeway, we looked at installing that same pedestrian half signal here as well to see if that would help those get across the intersection. This option here, however, was paired with another option further down the block that looked at a different diversion measure that's on the screen here. So what we looked at is instead of having the diversion up at the Woodland intersection, we just would install the pedestrian half signal in combination with what I now have on my screen. So what I have on my screen, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, is we have the intersection of Francis Street at Slater Street, as we recognized through our data collection that this area here was where people were kind of doing a little zigzag and continuing through along the corridor, essentially shortcutting. So this option here is a little bit more on the, I say, aggressive side for the diversion. So what we have here is Francis Street, you'd only be able to make a right turning movement onto Slater, which would then head towards the bridge. And then those that are on Slater couldn't cross Francis Street to then get on to, sorry, those that are on Slater could not continue on Slater. They'd have to be left or right onto Francis Street. So therefore you couldn't access Slater Street in that direction. This here is the goal of this is to assist with reducing the shortcutting vehicle volumes. And what we've also shown here is a little treatment crossing opportunity to help, because the intersections are a little bit staggered. It helps with the realignment of the cyclist to continue on to Slater Street on the local street bikeway. So we have two kind of combination options for the Slater Street option. So as we continue down, we're going to go look at the southern connection, which we looked at Pine Street. So connection from Thistle. So I'm just going to zoom us in. So here we come off of Slater, we come down Thistle and then on to Pine Street to then get down to Ochterlony Street was our end goal of the project for our southern connection. So this option here, zooming in for us. So coming off of Slater was another diversion measure that we looked at having in conjunction with the other options that I've already shown on Slater. What this is showing here is that you'd only be able to come off of Slater. You couldn't turn onto Slater from Thistle Street. So therefore Slater would be able to turn left or right. However, those from Thistle could not turn onto Slater. Again, this is helping in the peak hours to assist with those that are maybe shortcutting throughout the neighborhood along Slater Street the whole way, bypassing Victoria Road. What we have shown here for cyclists and pedestrians is something called a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. So you may be familiar with these where you may have gone to a crosswalk, push the buttons, and those that flash really quickly at eye level height, those are what we call rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or RRFBs, is a shortened name for them, as they're a mouthful. So that's what we have here. So cyclists would have to dismount at this location to then cross, whereas pedestrians would be able to push and continue. On the bottom of the page here on Thistle Street, we have a multi-use pathway again, where both of our, or I guess you say all of our users that are non-motorized would be able to use that space. It's an asphalt surface, and therefore cyclists and pedestrians would be able to maneuver. And then in conjunction with the Slater diversion, we looked at Pine Street to see if we could stop that shortcutting maneuver coming through the corridor. And again, in this case here, you'd be able to travel from Pine onto Thistle Street. However, those on Thistle Street could not come onto Pine. So as we come down to the bottom of Pine Street here, we come on to Ochterlony. So we're recommending some precast concrete barriers. These are those like kind of big gray pucks that you see at the intersection approaches. Some of them might have green flexible bollards on them as well. So those are just an interim measure for us to help with narrowing the approach of a road access, to help with essentially it's a little bit of a traffic calming measure to help identify you're coming into a traffic calm neighborhood. So that's the end of the southern connection. Now we're going to jump over to the west side. So that west connection option, we have two options to look at. We have an option that will connect from School Street from Slater over to Nantucket. And then our second option is looking at using Gladstone Avenue from Slater over to Nantucket. What you'll notice here on the screen is there's two dashed options. Those are the ones that are kind of differing. And then the solid options where they kind of come to the same option that continue down Nantucket. So there is a little bit of a repeat here with these two options. So that first option I mentioned is School Street. So coming off of Slater and then coming up to this intersection, it's quite a big intersection. So for those that may have traveled through here before, this is the Nantucket. So you just came off the bridge, you're at the top of the hill and you're at Signals now. So you pass McDonald's, you pass the cemetery, you're at this intersection here. You have School Street opposite of you. And then of course, you have Victoria Road, that is the other street that's crossing. There's lots going on here at this intersection. What we'd be looking at is on School Street is to have an on-street bi-directional cycling facility. And to accommodate that, we'd be looking at having precast curbs, concrete curbs with flexible bollards installed. And that would then provide approximately a 3-meter space for our bi-directional cycling facility. What we'd have here would be a crossing opportunity through bicycle signals to then cross the bidirectional facility parallel to the pedestrian crossing on this side of the intersection. And then we'd have them come over here to the channelized right turn to then cross as well in parallel with pedestrians and then continue down towards the bridge terminal, McDonald Bridge, that side, which I'll show you here in a minute. A few things to note here that we've heard since we've pulled these concepts together is potential opportunity to look at the channelized right turn alignment to see if there's any way to slow more cars down, as it was brought to our attention, as I've driven this as well, that its sight lines may not be the best at this location. Is there any way we can mitigate the risk here? Is there any other opportunities for us for crossing? So that's this intersection here. So lots going on. However, there'd be a push button at the main intersection here for the cyclist to cross. So if we keep coming down, so of course we just kind of came through the intersection and now we're kind of coming along the path here. So we'd have our bidirectional facility that would be parallel with a new sidewalk that's proposed. And that would tag into the existing sidewalk here as you're coming towards McDonald's and the bridge terminal. So keep that option in your mind. Now we're jumping down one more street to Gladstone Street. And this is where we have a different option that will then tie into that same spot, which is right by the bridge terminal. So our second option we looked at is a little bit further south on Victoria Road at Gladstone. And what we have here is that same bi-directional bike facility coming up to Victoria Road, but it's using that nice green space that we currently have there between the school and the big intersection there. So it's a removed kind of greenway pathway feel. Once you get to this intersection here, we split our cyclists to assist with crossing to come over to Gladstone. And we have our pedestrian crossing still there on the southern side of that intersection. Gladstone would be a local street bike application, which then would tie into Slater Street, and then the cyclists would continue on their journey that way. So this option here, of course, also comes down and tags into that same spot we just looked at, the other option where it tags into. So the cyclists would be in their own facility parallel to the existing sidewalk that's currently there. And then as we continue through, it'd be a combined multi-use pathway, approximately 3.5 meters wide. That'd be asphalt surface. And then we would continue down here. So if you can see this little red rectangle, it's a little bit faint. So if you can see that, that's where the bridge terminal access is for the buses or the transit vehicles. So we'd have a crossing there across that driveway. And then continuing down, we then would tag into the existing pedestrian half signal there across Nantucket. So that's that one that's quite a long crossing. But you have the Zatzman Sportsplex there, you have the bridge terminal there, and then you also, I believe, have Shoppers across the street. So that big crossing there, that's where we're tying our facility into. And then, of course, cyclists and other multi-use pathway users can then continue on their way and pick the facility they like. So I've gone through a lot of information, but what have we heard so far to date? So as Maria did mention, we have completed 2 public open house sessions. They're both on Wednesday, May 29th, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. We had some good attendance there from our neighborhood and surrounding communities, as well as we had very interactive discussions with some very passionate neighbors in the area that provided some great feedback. As mentioned, there's a survey that's been open from the 29th of May and will be closing on June 21st. And then, of course, we'll be gathering all that data together to then pull together similarities, as well as some kind of comments there that may have been kind of one-off comments that we'll look into there with the project team. So initially, again, this is a quick little snapshot of what we heard so far, is that there currently is speed humps or speed tables along Slater Street, and some of the residents or neighborhood residents that showed up mentioned that they're not slowing vehicles enough. So that's something that we heard. Another comment was Pine Street is too steep for cycling. We need to look at another option, essentially. Maybe some, but not all diversion options are needed. Maybe we can do one or try one as an interim measure first. So something that the project team is going to bring back and look at. Yeah, so use temporary measures first for any of the facilities. So give it a try. So we could pilot it or have a temporary or an interim installation, get some feedback, make any adjustments as needed, and then look at maybe a more permanent option depending on the feedback received. And then also is that people want to be able to still get to their homes. So of course, don't block us too much from our community. We still want to be able to get to and from our house in a reasonable amount of time. So again, so some quick snapshots that we heard so far, and we have a few more that Maria has pulled from the online survey. So I'm just going to pull those up on my other screen. Bear with me one second here. It's hiding. So a few things that we've heard from the online survey is generally residents support the changes, or at least some of them. The majority are okay with the Albor Lake Road project, which is that northern connection, to make that connection over to that future project. The majority are so for preferring the signals at Slater and Woodland. They find it's going to be less disruptive on the residents. The majority are against that diversion at Francis, which is that kind of more aggressive one where we were forcing people from Slater onto Francis, making that right turn. There's some more support for the Gladstone option, which is that second pink option that I showed that was crossing to a local street bikeway instead of at that busier intersection. Majority don't want to see the diversion combination of the Slater Thistle and Pine Thistle connection. That was that southern connection down to Ochterlony. Pine Street, as we've already mentioned, is way too steep, and we need to look at other options there. Maybe use Maple Street. And then in general, they welcome changes. The city is growing fast. However, they don't want to waste money, of course, on cyclists or facilities for cyclists here unless they're the right ones for the community. So quick little snapshot there. Then next steps for the project. So Maria jumped into this a little bit. So we're currently engaging with, of course, the public right now and yourselves. And then we're going to grab all the information and go back to our technical committee there, get all of the feedback pulled together and recommend a preferred option. Then WSP will take that recommendation and go to a functional design, 30% design, and prepare a functional plan that will be submitted to HRM and then, of course, pass through council for hopefully approval. And now I'm done. And I am welcome, like I can go back to any of the slides there. I can zoom in as needed. Do just let me know.
Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. We're going to ask members if they have questions or comments in the following order. The first one on the list is Rochelle Manette. Do you have anything to share?
Yeah. Thank you for that presentation. That was very informative. So much information to take in.
There's a lot, yes.
Yeah. I can't ride a bike, so like whenever I come at this, it's very much from like how will this affect me from not as a cyclist. Yep. But I guess, and you know, I'm glad that there's already been public engagement so that people who like live in that neighborhood can actually also have participation in this. They'll obviously be the most affected. I live on the other side of the bridge, so I'm not particularly affected by it, but I guess what was my question? Oh, so any like, and I guess this is like a broad question about traffic calming in general, but in theory, it like would relate to this, I assume. What happens to other streets and other intersections when traffic calming is done on like one intersection or street? Like, does it end up making traffic excitement on the other? I don't know, the opposite of traffic calming. That's my first question. I have another question after, but I'll let you answer that first.
Sounds good. And Maria can definitely jump in here as well. So with the Slater Street already currently has speed tables, which is a traffic calming measure in the toolbox that can be used. So the nice thing is here is a lot of our data already included some of the speed table information. To kind of go in conjunction with that is also traffic diversion. So of course we can get the speed down, but if we still have too many vehicles on the road, we still want to get the volume down. So what we focused on with this project here was more on the diversions to help getting that vehicle volume off of Slater to kind of be more in that reasonable range for us to have a local street bikeway. Yes, to answer your question, in most cases, some of the other streets sometimes can be affected by what treatments are put on one street that's kind of in the general neighborhood. The nice thing is here is that the speed tables have already been installed. So of course that has already kind of balanced out. However, with the diversions, then yes, there are traffic flow patterns that may be changed in the neighborhood. And what we recommend usually is that for HRM or the client in general to monitor and evaluate as they go on. And that's why we also kind of like more of the interim approach that you can take it out if it's not working, or you can change it if it's not working. So that's my answer. But Maria, do you have anything else to add to that? You're on mute, Maria. I'm so
No, I
glad to
think
see your video.
No, I think you've got it there. Definitely is going to force traffic to go onto other streets. In this case here, most likely they will stay on Victoria, and I think that's a bit of the fear in the neighborhood too, is that the streets will be forced to stay on Victoria, which is essentially where they should be, because that's more of an arterial or a route
higher class road.
Yeah, higher class road. We want more vehicles to go on there. But the downside is that when people try to go home, if they live off Slater, they have to go along Victoria. So that slows them down as well. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. It's not I think, but I like the idea of maybe an interim, interim solution. We just try it out, and if it doesn't work, and because really the feedback is, as I would say, is really split for
Right
what
now,
you do here. There's a lot of fear too. So.
Yep. Sure. And then my other question was for the public engagement sessions, were they in person? Was there virtual options? Was there both?
So for this one here, we did 2 in-person sessions, and we do have, of course, online survey available. I don't know if we are holding any virtual. I don't believe we are. But of course, those can use the Shape Your City platform as well to ask any questions, or phone Maria if they want to have any questions answered.
So yeah, this is the last thing I'll say, and then we can move on to other speakers. From like an accessibility point of view, because that really is like why we're here, having alternative options for like public engagement that is synchronous, I think is really important. So like offering a couple virtual sessions would be a good way to get information from the community who can't attend in person and also are not having a good time with like the survey stuff, because it doesn't work for everybody. And so the more ways people can engage, the better. Yeah, so from an accessibility point of view, I would say having some options for virtual engagement that is more synchronous would be really useful. Yeah, that's what I'll say. And thanks.
Okay, I just want to add though that I have had people call me, so I do have phone calls, people wanting an explanation, and emails, and I never thought about actually having a virtual meeting. We haven't thought that part. We thought, oh, it'd be better to have it in person, but I certainly can see your point. Yeah.
Thanks, Rochelle.
Great. Next, we have the Deputy Mayor, Kathy Deagle-Gaiman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Oh my goodness, so much information. And what a big project. So I don't really have any comments right now, maybe just accept your slide on next steps that's there. I do find it a little bit confusing, the D, E, F. The F
There's
is
also an
the,
A, B, C.
yeah, but the one that I was confused by a little bit is the DEF one, right? Because it's the functional design was in August, September. I know it started in September of 22. A, B, and C seems to make chronological sense to me. But
It
then
should
when
say
I look at,
2024.
yeah,
Yeah. So
So-
pretend that's not there. That's a 4.
okay. I was like,
Good
chronologically,
eye.
it didn't make any sense to me. So you might want to look at that slide.
Mhm. Good point.
This project
Thank you.
started in 22, so it was supposed to be done in 23.
Right, functional design and report, August, September 2023. Should that
4.
be
24.
2024. Yes.
Thank you. I was
Thank
getting
you.
a little
Good
bit.
catch.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. So everyone's good? Yes. Okay. Next is Councillor Trish Purdy. Would you have any question or comment?
I don't at this time. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
looking forward to this coming with your functional design and report.
Great. Councillor Paul Russell, is he there, Elizabeth?
Councillor Russell hasn't joined.
Oh, okay.
However, we do have April in the meeting. I'm still having issues promoting April to panelist, but
Okay.
I can ask to unmute. So April, can you hear us? Are you able to talk on your end?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'm First Nations and in community, and whenever I'm in community, I always have these technical issues. I don't have any questions right now. I feel like the first gentleman and a couple individuals before now brought up that I had also been thinking about. But great presentation, really excited about the project. And I just want to say, pat yourselves on the back for the amount of work that went into this. Very, very impressive. And I think that it's an amazing initiative.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next we have, and forgive me, I'm going to try my best, Liz Doe.
Great.
Great, okay.
Now, I don't know the Dartmouth area very well because I live in Halifax. So Victoria Road, I often don't go to that area and I try to avoid it because the traffic is so heavy there, especially when going across the bridge, because most people are heading to the bridge. Based on my experience in Halifax and from what I've seen, there are some streets that have slower shortcuts that are a bit more calm, but some people do get a bit angry when they're on the roads and there's a lot of traffic. And whenever I'm going out of the city or to Dartmouth, I do go to the bridge. I don't tend to go around to the Bedford-Sackville area. That's too long for me. So a shortcut for me is to take the bridge. But I do get worried when drivers do tend to cut you off, especially like on Barrington. People are in a rush and will just slide right in there. So, and it's also, you have to be careful when you see people going across the walkway, because sometimes they just jump out on you. And I had one more thought that I wanted to bring up. Yeah, it would be good to do it temporarily, the project, and then see if it's successful. And if not, you can tweak it or take it out and put something entirely new in there. Oh, and I had one more point. And sometimes when you put speed bumps in the road to quiet the traffic, people will avoid the street entirely because they don't find it enjoyable. And so that ends up switching the traffic to other directions as well. But yeah, I think that tends to be what happens, right? Yeah, and I'm sure whether the drivers have a disability or not, that everyone prefers a calm street where they can go where they need to go without having to worry about traffic. Am I right?
Yes, thank you so much, Liz, for your comments there. Yes, you are correct. There's a couple spots on the Halifax side that are definitely a little bit fun to navigate if you're a cyclist or even a motorist in this case. To kind of clarify your point, yes, the traffic calming or the speed tables. I can't specifically speak to Slater, of course, because we don't have kind of where some of the vehicles are going today. However, in general, speed tables do take some of the shortcutters off of the street, those that may have been speeding or don't want the nuisance of going over those speed tables. So that is a mission accomplished. In this case here, we need a few more to get off the street that are using the speed tables and navigating those right now to help us out with meeting the goals and guidelines. Yeah, so you are correct, yes.
Yes, and I just have one more comment before we go ahead with the next speaker is related to the speed issues, especially with motorists, or specifically the electric scooters and the electric bikes. Because I'm sure you've seen it happen time and time again where the scooters are in the wrong place or like people just abandon them wherever and we have to walk around them. Or if people who need to use wheelchairs, it's not very accessible, or those who use a cane if they're blind, that can be a hazard as well. Or older people that struggle to walk, that's also a hazard. Sometimes they're just laying around everywhere, it seems nowadays. So maybe to put a caution out there that if you're gonna use the scooters in those areas, they have to put them aside or put them in a designated area. I just wanted to add that comment in just before we move on to the next speaker.
Great, and thank you for that comment. What I can speak to is yes, they're definitely annoying when they are left right in the middle of the sidewalk. Myself, if I'm walking with my child in a stroller and with my dog, of course, I'm able to navigate usually. However, those that may have a little more mobility issues or challenges with that, definitely it's a concern and a challenge right now that we're facing with these e-scooters and some e-bikes being left kind of, all around. Maria, do you have anything to add about how AHRM is approaching the e-scooters being, randomly left around, that kind of thing right now?
Well, I know that they're starting up the micro mobility program, so they'll have basically a rental program like a lot of cities have, where you can rent scooters or e-bikes, and that should certainly. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be set up because they have different models, but that certainly should help. They'll have places where people can put their. They have to put them actually in a certain spot, so they just don't leave them everywhere. But certainly that's being looked into. It's a big problem for a lot of cities, yeah.
Great. We're going to move on to Glenn Babcock.
Hopefully they start that up again at that project up soon.
Okay, sorry.
Sounds great.
Great, thank
Yeah,
you,
that should be very soon, yeah.
And just to let you know,
Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay, no. Okay, she was just trying to change. Sorry. Okay, she was just trying to change the pins for the interpreter, but she realizes that I'm on now, so that's all that was. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. And also to let you guys know, I'm still working with having a good format for me to be able to see the screen and also to see the script, so for me to follow. And sometimes switching around, I don't get to either see Liz or I see the interpreter. So that is actually what's going on, is sometimes I don't see Liz communicating. So sometimes I feel like I was cutting through Liz, but it wasn't my intention. It's because I'm switching screens in the process.
Oh, that's okay. No, that's fine. I'm just trying to follow where the interpreter is and who's
Sure.
talking. So I'm just trying to figure out what's best for me.
Okay, no, that's
See
great.
which helps the best.
Awesome. So now we'll move on to Glenn. Glenn, we cannot hear you.
How about now?
Yes, it's great now.
Okay, just had to switch microphones. Okay, I'll just start by saying that we did arrive at our destination. There was a little bit of stuff going on, so I may have lost the plot a little bit during the middle of the presentation. It does seem like the proposal is very well thought out, but there were a number of different options listed, and I'm going to have to go back and go through those a little more carefully. Keeping in mind, I've only been active on this committee for 2 weeks and the active transportation committee for less than that. I have at least walked some of those streets involved, but I've never actually been on Slater Street. So I guess my primary concern really is the response of the local residents who live there and who will be most affected by it. But I know bike lanes do have to go somewhere, and it does seem like a good location and a good plan. So the next time I'm in Dartmouth, I think maybe I'll see if I can take a look around the neighborhood and probably be able to better visualize the layout and how it would all work. And hopefully, as nearsighted as I am, hopefully I'll be brave enough to try those bike lanes sometime in the future. But thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Glenn. And of course, this PowerPoint is a snapshot of all the information that, of course, I wanted to share here with you guys today. On the Shape Your City platform, there are all of the, we call them design boards, but all of the display boards that were shown at the open house are in a PDF format on the Shape Your City website. So you're welcome to go on there and download those. There's a lot more written context and more context there to help tell the whole story as well. So of course, these are snapshots of me verbally explaining, but the text and the images on those display boards are available for everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks. Next, we have Oliver Keith.
So yeah, thank you for the presentation, Courtney. It was really informative. I have a couple comments and questions. Some of them are a little bit repetitive. The first being just another clarifier on adjacent to what Rochelle was saying. Like, to be clear, if there is like these slow, like she said, excitement, I guess, indicators to different streets, how again does that work, and what is the systems that are in place? Because it almost does seem like you're playing like that mole punch game where you slow one street down and people start speeding up another. Just to refresh that in my head.
Fair reference too. It's pretty good. So what I have here, I thought I'd bring up the project area map because that helps us visualize. The interesting part about Slater, so in general, yes, whenever you put a traffic calming measure, whether it's like a speed calming measure or a diversion measure, it's going to change the character of the street. Kind of the goal. However, we need to be mindful that there's other streets that are in the network too. The interesting part about Slater Street is it's really the only parallel corridor to Victoria. So if you can see my cursor here on my little hand, Victoria Road, of course, is the one that's on the bottom of the blue here. So the nice part is that we're hoping that with Slater's proposed diversions, if those are the options that are picked, there'll be kind of a disbursement. So it's not everybody's going to use this new one street. It's going to be kind of spread out of multiple access points. So for example, if you live between Alba Lake and Woodland, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like there's 8 different opportunities, and even Alba Lake Road to kind of come into the neighborhood. So there's opportunities out there. For example, I'm just picking on one block here, but the nice part is here in this layout of the road network, we don't have really another parallel corridor that we're going to really see people zooming up and down right now. We're trying to get people back on Victoria Road that we're shortcutting using Slater. So we hope it's going to work, but of course, that's why we're looking at those interim measures. And we definitely recommend for HRM to monitor and evaluate the after impacts as well.
Great. Thank you so much. My next point is on the west connection between option 1 and 2.
Yep.
I just wanted to be clear that option 2 is the one that develops new sidewalk. I know the spaces around Nantucket is and around the Dartmouth Common does provide a lot of green space.
Yep.
And I wanted to be clear that that second option does create those new sidewalk options. The sidewalk quality in the region is, brutal, and the development of new ones is always great. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah, so it's option 1 that
Okay.
actually has the new sidewalk proposed. I'm just getting up an aerial vision so everyone has a little bit of a better chance to kind of ballpark where we are. So it's not the same
Fantastic.
orientation that we just were talking about. However, Nantucket is here, the little bit of a wider street with the
Right.
cemetery to the northwest. And then as you kind of see here right now, there is that kind of you can't really see because of course there's beautiful trees there, but there's an existing sidewalk here, and that's where we'll be paralleling with a bidirectional facility. The bidirectional will be the new piece for the Gladstone crossing option, which was the second one I showed. The first option, we'd be looking at having a sidewalk and a bidirectional facility considered new to connect from up here at Nantucket, Victoria, and School. Coming as you follow my cursor here on the side, that's where that new facility would be, and then it would then blend to the existing sidewalk and continue.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah, that actually seems great. It definitely opens up that triangular shape there within that space from both
Definitely
angles.
desire
And
lines.
yeah, and that would be great. Especially a new sidewalk would be fantastic down in Nantucket. My last question is the quality of material for both the sidewalk and for the bike lanes. I know personally when I have used bikes with my arthritis, it's very painful on bumpy materials. So like the asphalt is preferred as opposed to like a rock trail type material.
Yes.
Just wanted to be clear on that front about what type of materials are being used when creating these new bike lanes.
Yes. So anything that is on road, of course, would be utilizing the road surface, which is asphalt.
Right.
Anything that we're proposing that was a bidirectional bicycle facility would be asphalt. And then anything that we're proposing as a multi-use pathway in this area here is asphalt as well.
Great.
So in this case here, since we're so close to streets and proximity to a lot of course, vehicle movement, we don't like using granulars or gravel as much as possible because, of course, that could track onto the road, become
Absolutely.
projectile, can fling all that fun stuff, right? So
Right.
in this study area, we're looking at all asphalt surfaces.
Great. Awesome. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Welcome. Thanks, Keith. Or Oliver. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Tavan Tarmaratnam. Would you have anything to share? Comment, question?
Yeah, I just had those questions that I had kind of had earlier. And then I guess one of the other questions, just this is the accessibility committee, and it kind of alluded to, I think, what Liv was saying. Has there been consideration taken specifically when we're talking about that section on Aldborough Lake Road and then on Thistle, where it's going to essentially be a multi-use component where the sidewalk and the bike lane are going to be used to ensure that individuals with visual impairment, hearing impairment, that it doesn't jeopardize their use of the roadways as well. Because I think it was like Victoria or Vancouver or Victoria that had that human rights case a couple of years ago around bike lanes and individuals with disability. And so just kind of being cognizant of that. And then the other point that I had was just around the other side of Woodlawn. Like we live in that neighborhood, and like once again, I'm super supportive of this. Like I bike and I try and bike as much as possible. So I think this is great, and it's in our backyard, so which is even better. But just to be kind of cognizant of those things.
Yeah, so I believe the first question that you had there was to do with how is it going to impact, or was there any data collected on those other streets? For this project specifically, we focused on the colored streets here to see what the data was and the Victoria section. So we wanted to look at the impact of some of those diversions in regards to traffic operations and seeing what the delays and the queues were. As part of that monitoring evaluation that we'll recommend to HRM, we wouldn't recommend just focusing on Slater or the study corridor here. We would say, hey, go take a couple snapshots on some of the other nearby local streets to get a ballpark before, let the system be there 3, 4, 6 months, then take another snapshot and see what's the impacts. Get maybe a poll from the residents to say, hey, have you noticed a change? Better, worse? What are you seeing? Because of course you guys see it every day. You're our local residents. You're our cream of the crop for information. So that's who we like to go to. The second question there in regards to multi-use pathways, wherever we can and we have the space without significant property acquisition, all those fun stuff, utility impacts, separating cyclists and pedestrians is definitely our goal. There's some spots where we might just not have that space in the road right of way, or we might have to take homes. And of course, that's not necessarily ideal. However, it is done in some cases. However, where we can have some smaller wins, where there might be some shorter connections at our multi-use pathway, we try and put them in, but we if possible, we try and have a parallel sidewalk on the other side. So therefore, there's a space for all users, I guess you could say, on one side with the multi-use pathway, then on the other side of the street, if available as well, we try and have a dedicated sidewalk so that those that might be visually impaired or utilizing other facilities that might be a little harder to navigate with the multi-use pathway do have another option. Also, tactile walking surface indicators are proposed for all the crossings to help with alignment and, of course, warning that visually impaired or the blind are leaving the safe space as well. So we've tried to incorporate that as much as possible. Again, we try for those small wins with short connections there as much as possible.
No, that's great. And the last question I had is just around Pine Street, because I mean, it is like there's really no other solution. But has there been any discussion around like using even like Dartmouth Commons or going through that approach of it? Because I mean, like getting from downtown to Slater, you're gonna have to go down a hill at some point, but and up a hill.
You're both ways, yes, exactly. So yeah, we heard some really great innovative routes proposed from some of the local neighborhood and neighborhood residents. So we're going to explore those. We're going to see what else we can do that's outside of Pine Street. Pine Street going down still, it's almost like a roller coaster feel. However, definitely easier than coming up the hill. But the project team is going to be looking at that further to see what else can we do. Can we do something on Maple? Can we do something through Dartmouth Common with a crossing at Gladstone? Is there another way to avoid Pine if possible, or at least provide another route option?
Yeah.
Maria, anything to add there?
From the accessibility perspective, too, like Pine going, like I can't do it.
It's brutal.
The days, it's just There's that thing that I mean, you guys really want to invest. There, I think it's like in Iceland or somewhere in Scandinavia where it's like a thing
elevator or something.
Yeah, it's like an elevator, it's a bike elevator essentially. Yeah, so
I love that.
An option. So yeah.
There you go, Maria. That's the next project to work on, is that elevator project for us.
Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's great. It is tricky though, because that street is. We've looked at that. We've looked at Maple Street as well. So that's going to be tricky, or we just take it off because it doesn't make sense to have it even designated as a bike route. The lower part of Pine is really good if you're biking to get up to Dahlia, where the existing local street bikeway is. So from Ochterlony up to Dahlia and then through the Commons, that's perfect. It's no problem at all. But it's that one piece. There's 1 or 2 blocks that are really steep. So
Great, thank you.
And next on the list is me. So for myself, my takeaway, I do have something similar like to what this plan is in my area, which is like Allen Street connecting with Oak. And you had pointed out how it is to discourage drivers from shortcutting. And I see it still, like there's a bus stop not nearby. So some mornings I get to see the oppositional defiance of drivers where they want their driving rights so bad. And my question is what kind of signage can we come up with to kind of give them a perspective of the type of risk that they're taking? Because sometimes I do see them because they're not supposed to go straight. They're supposed to turn right. And sometimes they turn right and cut off pedestrians all the time. My favorite thing ever. But that's the thing, is that they really are putting a cyclist in danger. I do see it sometimes where they're gunning it at the same time as the cyclist. So I'm just kind of wondering about signage, about like, what are the fines? What is going to be, because I'm even seeing this with the speed humps as well. Like there is an oppositional defiance. I must show the city that I will not slow down, type stuff. So just a question on that.
Liz did have one comment. One other thing that's pretty dangerous on the street. I don't know the name of the area. North, south, Mill Pond.
It's off of Sullivan's Pond.
Sullivan's Pond.
I don't know the street name itself, but it's off of Sullivan's Pond. If anyone knows that area, it's a pretty steep incline, and it's going to, I don't even know the name that it goes, the street that it goes to, but do you guys know what I mean? It's Sullivan's Pond is right next to it, and it's a steeper incline.
Is it Dahlia? She's talking about Dahlia? Am I anywhere close on the map?
I'm not sure. Maybe move it up a little bit and over. No, down, down, down.
Dahlia does have the bike
church
right now.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Am I close?
It's the one that has a church on it, and it's going upwards. It's a steeper incline of a street. Do you guys know it?
Maple or Crichton? Like, am I close here? It is outside the study area, but
Unless she's talking about Victoria Road.
Bigger?
Maybe. Yeah.
She asked.
She might be talking about right here.
Are you suggesting another route? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
I think it's more so of a comment.
Okay.
I think she's trying to find it. Can you make it just a little bit bigger? Oh, no. Sorry.
Zoomed out or zoom in?
Zoom in. Zoom in. I can't, I wish I could move it myself, but anyway. It's near Sullivan's Pond.
Yeah, which is up here.
Yeah, that must be Maple Street.
I'm thinking it's Maple or Crichton.
There's a.
Because Maple's right here.
Yeah, I think it's Maple Street. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty dangerous area, really.
Yeah. There's a lot of traffic and speed.
I go to drive up it, and you really can't see what's on the right and what's coming towards you. So you're kind of doing like a head, you go fast to get through it and hope that nothing happens. So now I really try to avoid that at all costs. Prince Arthur, I think, when I go down. I'm trying to think of the name of the street.
Crichton.
Crichton.
Yep. That was my guess. Right here.
Yeah, it's a pretty straight stretch right up.
Mhm.
You know, you kind of have to gun it up there just because you get stuck at the bottom. It's not a good situation.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I did forget to mention I have a hard stop at 5:45. I have to leave for another engagement, so I just wanted to put that out there. So I hate to lose the opportunity for other questions. So Celine, to kind of come back to yours, if that's okay.
Oh,
Signage
sorry,
is
I was just sorry. I digress.
Yeah, no worries. So Celine, signage can only do so much, of course, without enforcement or police presence. Sometimes those that see the sign look around and see if there's anybody there watching them and sneak through. So we do like to do signage. We don't like to overdo signage because, of course, we want people to be compliant with what they can see. But it can only get you so far. So that's why we like to have some other physical measures, sometimes to assist with the restrictions. There's always those few that are just going to be that little bit extra that will make their way through no matter which way.
Yeah.
If they have those, say, those big trucks, they can get over the curbs, that kind of thing. So we do our best, but of course, there's always those handful that make it
Yeah,
fun for all of us.
Oh, I know. At least for myself, in some positivity, I've seen a lot of improvements, like especially for the type of work that you guys are doing. I really do see it coming to a better fruition because I used to not have a really great time with drivers all the time, but now I feel like it's curbed that down quite a bit. So thank you for this kind of work.
Thank you. Allen Oak was one of my first projects back in 2018. So
Oh,
there you
is
go.
it? Oh, yeah. Oh no, it's been.
Sorry if you hate it.
Oh no, it's okay, but it's just it's that what I'm always witnessing. There's always this sort of oppositional attitude from time to time. So yeah, I believe we have finished this presentation. Is this good?
That will change.
Pardon?
That's starting to change. That will change.
Oh yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so I think it's Elizabeth, it's safe to say that we can go next on the agenda. Yes?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. So next on our agenda is a discussion regarding the 2024 work plan. A memo from staff and last year's work plan has been circulated. It will go through the speakers list so each member can have a chance to express ideas for the 2024 work plan. When the presentation has ended, ask member. Okay, here it says like I can ask members if there's questions or comments in the following order. Because there wasn't a presentation, Elizabeth, or is there a presentation?
So for this item, there's no
presentation. Okay.
If anyone does have any questions about the handout that was distributed via the agenda package, Melissa or myself can probably answer those, but otherwise we can go around using the speakers list.
Okay,
and
sure.
Everyone can have a turn just to say what they would like to see in the work plan. This is kind of to be a brainstorming type session.
Okay, that's great. So we'll start with April Adams. April, are you there?
I am here. You all cut out just for the last little bit though. Can you give me a refresh, please?
Oh, okay. On our agenda at the moment, it's a discussion regarding the 2024 work plan. A memo from staff and last year's work plan has been circulated. We will go through the speakers list so each member can have a chance to express ideas for the 2024 work plan. Were you able to hear? Yes?
I was able to hear, and I do have notes on this, but I'm not prepared. Could you put me maybe at the end?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Rochelle Manette.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a look. I mean, I also was part of this last year's work plan, and so have had a look at it again. I feel like, I don't know, there's some things that we tend to put on the work plan over and over again, from what I understand, based on like the last couple of years I've been on this committee. And I just don't, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the process, but like, for example, we've had like parking and transportation on the work plan for a long time. And then I'm trying to figure out whose job is it to have the parking and transportation presentations actually like come to the committee. So I feel like the priorities that we put on last year's work plan didn't happen as strongly as I would have hoped. But I think I was just not sure of the process for how to like get those things looked at. Although the budget one, like the municipal budget, I really feel strongly that we should have presentations from council and whoever is in charge of that. I can't remember now. Again, because last year we got in quite late with that conversation, and so like a lot of decisions had been made, and many of them really affected the accessibility of the city and different programs that were happening related to accessibility by the time that like I even heard about it. So having a little bit more time to get to have presentations and have some feedback on that, I think would be important. What else? I think last year we also, sorry to talk about last year, but I feel like it is relevant. We used to have one of the action or the priorities was about the town hall, but last year it had been decided that because the town hall has its own like budget line, and so it automatically will happen, that it doesn't need to be one of the priorities because it already like is a given priority. So I just want to I think that makes sense to do again. And then we can have space and time for like other priorities. But personally, I actually feel like the priorities we already have around like built form, the municipal budget planning process, and then like accessible parking. And I would love to add accessible transportation to the accessible parking piece because I do think they kind of go hand in hand. I feel like those are good priorities for us to focus on. And then other people, like other presentations do come up and we don't only have to focus on those, but I do think that they are useful. And I wish that we had touched on them a little bit more last year. And so feel excited to hopefully do a little more on them this year. But those are all my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Rochelle. Next, we have Deputy Mayor Kathy Deagle-Gaiman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I would like to sort of build on Rochelle's good comments, especially in the light of having 4 new committee members. I'm just wondering if the timing is right, or if we have to approve or look at this work plan right now. I'm wondering if, and maybe Melissa might be able to answer some of this for me, but I'm just wondering if there is an overview that could be done just around what the work plan has been like for the last couple of years from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, what their thoughts are around the work plan, and just wondering if maybe the next time we meet, if there's a way to do a little bit of a summary and an update, especially with new members, so that we'll have a little better understanding about maybe where we even want to go with the work plan. Like, I agree that, the town hall still has to be in there because the work plan does get approved. But yeah, I think that there are just other places that new committee members might have some really interesting thoughts on.
Okay, that's a good one. Melissa, it appears that you would like to share something.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I just want to respond to what Deputy Mayor Deagle-Gaiman said. So the work plan in the past really doesn't fit with the Office of DNR. It sits solely with the committee, and oftentimes in the past we brought people in from different departments, different business units, to kind of give committee members a sense of the landscape of the municipality and got kind of what services. And I think to Rochelle's point about, it seems to be the same year, and I kind of agree with you, Rochelle, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we always have new members on the committee, so we're always constantly trying to keep the new members informed. And just speak on Rochelle's point too about why maybe last year we didn't have some speakers come in. I think that is because I was seeing so many business units who were coming up with a lot of projects that they were doing. So I would send them to this committee so you folks could have a sense of what was going on. So Michelle, I'll take ownership for that. I just thought it was a good way to allow committee members to know, okay, if I'm meeting with somebody in HRM on a project, I would often say, I think you should present to the AAC and allow them to provide the feedback. So I think, Michelle, to your point, that might have been why that what was put in the work plan last year wasn't achieved, just because we had so many other presentations. So I hope that answers Michelle's comment, as well as Deputy Mayor Dico. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Next, we have Councillor Trish Purdy. Would you have something to share?
Thank you. And thanks for that. I agree with both of those, Rochelle and Deputy Mayor's comments there. The only other thing I would add is just for the town hall, this will be my third town hall. There seems to be a need for provincial representation to be at our town hall, focusing on housing and accessibility. So I'm wondering if there can be an invitation extended to our provincial friends to see if anyone would be willing to join us for that town hall and just to be there to be able to answer the specific questions for their jurisdictional mandates. That would be very helpful, I think, to the folks, to the residents who attend.
Great. And next we have Councillor Paul Russell.
So Councillor Russell is actually has just joined the meeting.
Okay.
And just to speak to your question, Councillor Purdy, that's something that Melissa and I can kind of work on together and look into.
I do appreciate that you've included me at this point, but as Elizabeth mentioned, I have just joined. I missed most of the presentation, so it is going to take me a few minutes to catch up. I do apologize for being late.
Okay, oh, that's cool. I can, so you would like for me to add you at the end of the list, yes?
Yes, and I will have a listen to what other people say and then.
Sure, okay,
yeah,
cool.
Thank you.
All right, great. Next is Liz Dow.
Yeah, I do agree with what you guys have been saying so far, but I feel like there's some topics that have yet to be discussed. I don't know whose department that would be under, but specifically with the bus transportation issues that have been going on, I feel like there's a lot of people who are frustrated with the bus system. I know we have some more eco-friendly buses, and there are accessible buses that provide accessibility for wheelchair users as well. But some buses just don't show up, are super late. There's issues with people having arguments on the bus. So I just don't know if we could discuss like possible solutions for that, if we could put that on the topic to be discussed. I don't know a ton about it, but I know for the past 4 years, it's been especially bad.
Great, thank you, Liz, for sharing. Next, we have Glenn Babcock.
Well, again, I will probably be short, not to play the new card again, but I've learned a lot in the last couple of weeks from the meetings that I've attended. I'm still primarily listening to the people who are more knowledgeable about these ongoing work plans, that sort of thing. So I don't really have any interesting new ideas to contribute at the moment, but hopefully that will change in the near future.
Great. Thank you so much. Oliver Keith?
Yeah, I hate to do this, but I will do some echoing. I was thinking the same thing when looking at the priority list. In particular, just how the priorities we had in 2023 could evolve into 2024's new priorities. And like obviously I would like, for example, priority 1 to evolve into a space where we could do meetings in regards to some of the park spaces that are being developed. Like I know like Echo and Bedford West and the Eastern Passage all have new green space and park developments going into fruition recently, and it would be interesting to be a part of those. But that being said, like people have said before, it would be very informative to kind of have an idea of the development of work plans in the past and see how they've evolved and how we can kind of be efficient in that process and use our collective wisely. So yeah, kind of echoing Glenn as well, like I'm new and still trying to get a hold of how to kind of use my experiences wisely and efficiently and proactive within this group. So thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Devon. You gotta help me with the name. I'm sorry about that.
That's all good. It's pronounced Vivian, but it's all good. It's like Vivian with a T. That's the easiest way to.
Right, but how does it sound? You keep saying it's all good, but I don't. Can you tell me how you?
Vivian.
Vivian? Yeah. Okay, that's great. I can do that. Okay.
Yeah. No. I'll just once again echo a lot of what everyone else was saying. But one thing that I was also would be nice to include in the work plan was potentially just looking at some of the programming and the service side of it as well, and ensuring that access and the participation barriers are there. Because I think sometimes we just focus on like built infrastructures and roads and things like that and parks. And when we're talking about the other side of municipalities is some of the community service programming and camps and things like that also operate within it. And so just ensuring that as well, because that's a lot of the kind of concerns that arise from some of the parents and families that we support as well. So.
Great, thank you. Next on the list is me, Céline Beautour. I made a little cheat sheet of 3 things, and the first one that comes to mind is how, as an advocate, I actually really get to know how many disabled people in the HRM are socially isolated. And it goes into like accessibility with transit, how to get to places to be able to socialize. They're very far and few in between, even as someone who has helped, tried to help.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Thank you. Thanks. So that being said, I really believe that, for example, right now I've been talking with Elizabeth about this, is that I really feel there's a bus route that is super needed. Like, for example, my dream bus is going down Quinpool, going down Cogswell, continuing on because now we have a new roadway from Cogswell. So then we can actually turn right. We usually go onto Hollis, but imagine being able to go onto Lower Water Street, where we would have front bus stops for the museums, the waterfront, the farmers market, etc. So that's the thing. It's like I feel too, like even just from Quinpool going into Cogswell, we also get to connect with Gottingen Street. I, for example, do not go out. I really would like to have a nightlife, and that has kind of personally been a problem where I don't get to meet people, especially at night, to schmooze, is because I can't have a safe way going home. I would have to walk through the commons, and if everyone knows already, it's very dark to walk through, and it does have potential for violence. And so that's the thing. If there was a bus going back home, I could take that bus to totally offset the fact that I have to cross paths in a very isolated sector. So this is just like an example of what I mean. It's like social isolation is a direct result to not having an accessible transit system that keeps where the people want to go to in mind. It's the same thing with employment. There's a lot of employment opportunities many of us fall short of attaining because we don't have the transportation to get there. So that's like something along that line that I'm looking at is just exactly that. It's like, how do we increase recreation, nightlife for people to be able to get to know new people? You know, that's how it is, networking. We also get to have a job. We get to have a community of people. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. The second one I wanted to mention as well is the housing supply. I've been made very familiar with how difficult it can be to find housing, especially if you're experiencing life with mobility challenges. I've had a friend who had to take quite a great deal of time to find an apartment for her that is one level, that has a minimal amount of stairs to get into the dwelling. Same thing with like supportive fixtures, like such as a walk-in shower. Reason why I mentioned that is that we often talk about housing and how we're planning on increasing the housing supply. We talk about affordability, but we don't seem to kind of acknowledge that there's also the make of how these dwellings are created. So that would be something I'd like to focus on throughout 2024 as a work plan. So yeah, and like the next thing too that we never really talk about is public services. Like, how do we make sure that there are an accessibility to get to public services? I can even make one direct example, even to get to access Nova Scotia to get a learner's license. I know everybody wants to say, well, you can do it online, but there are many people out there that would do better with pen and paper. So things like that. There's no direct bus to get there at all, unless if you want to take 90 minutes to go through a whirlwind of streets to get there, and then wait maybe 45 minutes to get onto another bus. Like, so that's what I mean. It's like we need to look at how is it to live in the HRM with limited abilities, so that would be my take on the work plan. I don't know if I went on a tangent, but so yeah. Next, I can definitely move on again to ask if April would have something to share.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm so glad I follow you because I feel like we're on the same track here.
Great,
so I just have to pull up my notes, and I'm so excited. Sorry, my son is just coming in. I'm just finishing up my meeting and I'm going to be out. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can make a sandwich. I love you. Sorry about that. Okay, so I really like what several people said. They were all on my notes in regards to transportation is key, housing is key. And also there are a lot of new people on this committee, and I think that reviewing. Can you hear me?
Can we take a time out for 1 quick minute?
Okay.
Am I going too fast?
No.
Sorry, I can slow down.
We're good. Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay.
I'm okay to go?
Okay to go.
Sorry, I'll slow down. I'm very excited after hearing that last.
And also too, Liz, thanks for mentioning all of this too, because I have to realize I'm a fast speaker too, so I'm writing that on my notes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so yes, so what we brought up about transportation, it's definitely one of the top 3 things I think should be forefront. And I've been in several meetings now up until today, until this meeting. I'm new, but I have a little more tenure than a few of you, and transportation is brought up every single meeting. It's a really key thing, and everything that everyone spoke about already in this meeting about transportation is all 100% on point. So transportation for sure. Housing, huge. Every group that I go speak to, every place that I volunteer with, my spouse works with disabled adults. This is a constant conversation that's happening everywhere. And don't get me wrong, Dartmouth Housing is really leading a lot of the amazing change there and the renovations they're doing. And I've been in the properties, and it's phenomenal. It's just not enough. So housing is definitely forefront. Like I said, reviewing the previous plans and discussing their effectiveness and efficiency, because 2030 is coming, and we did shout out the word achieve. And I think that we really have to kind of light some fires to achieve, and that includes all of us, but we're not the be all end all. So I think all of our connections to different groups Just for example, the Micmac Friendship Center is a great example of that. Statistics for First Nations disabled are some of the worst in the whole country, for sure. I'm really good when it comes to statistics too. In the federal government, I have access to a lot of amazing stuff there. I'm happy to share with anyone, not just on Indigenous, but across the board. I've worked with people who are leading a lot of the changes in these topics. And yeah, so I feel like we really need to kind of pick up the pace and find a way to all work really well together, working towards achieving things. So even just champions on our committee, I don't know if that's ever been done before, or if it is being done, and because I'm new, I don't know, but different committees championing different priorities, because someone brought up just in regards to social services. So social services in Halifax are moving in a way that are completely inaccessible to anyone who does not use online or is not proficient in online use. And a large percentage of all of the accessibility needs, disability, neurodivergent people that I work with really struggle with that they can't go into our social services in person and get the help they need anymore. It's all either over the phone or online, and a huge struggle, huge barrier there. General accessibility too. I like the transportation, I like the housing, I like social services, but general accessibility since COVID and since all the costs to, like, I'm just going to use restaurants as an example. Everyone is just turning off their door openers. I don't know if it's the cost of power. I haven't spoken to the individuals yet, but I'm coming across more and more barriers for people just to enter into social settings, like we were just discussing, that are so important. I'm going too fast. Did somebody just say that? Sorry. I'm super excited. So I love that stops at all places that are accessible, so that there can be more networking, more recreation, jobs. So this is my field that I just finished up with Deputy Minister Gina Wilson. I just did a job for a year and a half there in regards to hiring disabled and anyone with accessibility, diversity, neurodivergent individuals into finding the right place, because genuinely, as a talent advisor in the federal government, what I've learned is that there is a right place for everybody. There's a place for everybody. It's just finding the right one, that right place where they feel safe and comfortable. And we've had really huge success rates statistically in what we're doing there. So I think that's really important. And I think I went over everything except for, one of the best things I've found while working with this committee since I've been here is how we bring in and showcase within our own committee all the groups doing and achieving accessible things in HRM. And I think of the first presentation I saw before I was on this committee with Nova and all that her groups, but I think that we are a small committee and we are not big enough to achieve this work plan. That was when I read it, I was like, this is kind of broad and vague, and I don't see those action steps. But what I can say is pulling in and showcasing all of these groups who are achieving these things and amplifying them, because that's what I've been doing this whole time. Every time we bring in people and I learn about these different things that are going on that I never even knew about. And I have like an 8-person disabled, accessible needs / neurodivergent family, and so many things applied to a lot of my children and stuff that I was just like, how did I not know about this? So really showcasing all the groups who are doing and achieving accessible outcomes, I think, is the best thing I've taken from the committee thus far. I'm sorry for taking up so much time.
Oh, no, it's great. I really like what you've had to share, and even what stood out is safety, because that's exactly the same thing. It's like I feel social isolation has been surrounded around safety, trying to get home after dark, trying to get to a place without having to walk, because there's literally some places the only way to get there is by walking a few blocks. Without a vehicle, you've got nothing, and there's no transit bringing you to these common recreational places. That's what I find interesting. So as right now it is 6 p.m., we could probably, Elizabeth, if you agree, we can move to Paul, and I don't know how we could wrap it up after that, if you have a suggestion.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the best way to proceed. We do still have quorum at this time, so if you wanted to call on Councillor Russell to see if he has anything to contribute, then we could adjourn the meeting after that.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I've been listening, and there are a lot of great ideas that have come forward, and I think they would make a fulsome work plan for the committee. We had a discussion this morning at the Executive Standing Committee in City Hall, and what we were talking about was the upcoming election. And one of the items was sending out postcards to every resident. These postcards are standard, and they talk about the election and how to register and all of that good stuff. And they're in English, and they're flat. And it occurred to me that they're in English and they're flat. So they don't speak to those who are not English speaking, and they certainly don't speak to those who
What do you mean?
who need to use Braille.
Yes.
So
can I just
have
say one thing too? Like plain language too, the access to plain language information, you know, we got to start addressing that. I think that's another thing that we should add to the work plan.
That makes sense. Plain language makes a whole lot of sense. The challenge that we're in is we have to make sure that what we put out is available to everybody. So we have to find what the right format is. But yeah, the postcards that we send out. So we reach out to residents a number of times with development applications, with the elections, with other notifications that are going on, street closures, things like that. And being able to have it in multiple languages, including Braille, I think would go a long way. I'll just leave it at that.
Sure. And I can even say the font matters. It definitely matters to me how things are written. If it's in this like pencil thin font, I avoid it because it's very difficult for me to process given my conditions. So I would say that we can wrap this up. I think we can agree. Yes. Okay.
I think
Liz would have some final something to share.
Did I add something, or are we running a little bit too late?
It's not that we're running late, but if you would like to add something,
I can't speak, I can't speak for all deaf and hard of hearing people, but it's important to, Julia, can you help me out?
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're just going to start on over. We're going to switch interpreters last minute. So for the vote that's coming in the fall, I think it's in October. When we get an interpreter for that conference and for that vote, we need an interpreter that's there for all deaf and hard of hearing folks for the presentations or whatnot that's going on at that meeting. And again, I can't speak for all deaf and hard of hearing folks in all of Nova Scotia, but it's just something I want to put out there that's, sorry, just a second, I'm going to go in for verification. Yeah, just something to keep in mind that all deaf folks and hard of hearing folks have their preferred interpreters. So just to keep in mind that when you are hiring interpreters for meetings or events, to take into account everyone's preferred interpreters and to discuss with all deaf folks that are there, not just the one deaf person that you're used to talking to. I don't have that much experience in these votes and the meetings that are to come, but just something to throw out there as food for thought.
Thank you, Liz. No, I do agree. It's very important to highlight these things.
Oh, I see Rochelle has their hand up, Chair.
Yes, Rochelle. Yeah.
Thanks. Just, while we're still on this topic, can someone remind me, actually, then this is probably for you, Elizabeth, what is the process with the work plan now? So we've talked about it, like, what are we essentially expecting for next meeting to be doing?
So today the purpose was to have an initial brainstorm to kind of identify some priority themes. And then the step after that is the idea is that the staff liaison, Melissa Myers, and myself will kind of take this information from the brainstorming session, kind of highlight the priority themes and organize the information in order to form a draft work plan. And then we can kind of come back with that and discuss that with the committee, respond to any questions of clarification regarding what's within municipal jurisdiction, what isn't, and then hopefully move forward to an approved work plan.
Thanks.
Thanks. So I think we can wrap this up with this be all in agreement. Yes.
I think Elizabeth might have one last thing to say.
Okay.
Just hoping to keep the meeting open long enough that I could speak to the interpreters after we've closed everything off.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
That's
okay.
fine. I won't end the meeting, Liz.
Okay, that's great. So the next, so there's no added items. That's right. Okay. The date of the next meeting is July 15th, 2024. And I hope to see you all there. I don't know how to close this yet. I'm going to get good at this. I will now call for a motion to adjourn. This requires a mover only, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
So moved.
It's moved. Moving and shaking. Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for this great meeting. Thank
you, and you did an amazing job.
Thank you. Clumsy and all, but I'll get there.
But it looks like it's you.
Thank you all.
Great job, Celine.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Thank
Good
you
job.
all.
Thanks.